I grew up, when I was a kid, we were in South Dakota, and I have an older brother. He's about 4 years older than me, and in South Dakota, you can actually get your learner's permit at the age of 14. And so my brother, right around when he was like 13, almost 14, was getting ready for that, and so I was like 9 or 10, and one day, we were going to go somewhere. I don't even remember where we were going, but we were waiting for my dad, and my dad had an old Ford, like F-100, F-150 pickup, blue, and it was a manual, and it was really cool. It was just this cool old truck. And so I'm sitting in the truck. I remember sitting in the truck in the passenger seat waiting for my dad to come out, and it was going to be my dad, my brother, and me, and I don't know where we were going, but we were going somewhere. My brother hops in the truck. He gets in the driver's side, and, he's excited. He's getting ready to get his learner's permit, and he's learning things about cars. So he's sitting there. The car's not on. The vehicle's not on. But he pops the clutch in, and he starts, going through the gears, and he's like first and second and third and fourth, right? He's doing his thing. And then he's done, and he gets out of the truck. And I'm like, that's cool. And so I hop over to the driver's side as well, and I'm just sitting there. Now, I don't know what I'm doing, so I don't do anything. I'm just holding onto the wheel, I'm kind of like looking, and I'm trying to figure out what he did, but I don't touch the car. And then all of a sudden, the truck starts rolling backwards. I wouldn't even call it a driveway. We had this huge, area where we parked. It was like we were up on the top of a hill is where we lived. And so the truck just starts slowly rolling back. And I'm 9, I'm 10. I really don't know anything. I don't know to hit the brake, apparently. So I'm just like, what's going on? And thankfully, the girl that would deliver our newspaper was coming down the street, the road, and she sees the truck going, and so she runs up and she rips open the door and she pushes her hand on the brake, saves my life and everything. It's fantastic, And so that's all taken care of, and everybody's safe. And my parents, at first they're concerned, are you okay? What happened? And that kind of thing. And then my dad's like, what happened? What were you doing? And I said, I didn't do anything. I was just sitting there. I said, Justin had got in, and he was doing this thing. I don't know what that is. And apparently he left it out of gear because there was no brake on and stuff. And you know what my brother did? He lied. He said, I put it back in gear. I know I did. He had to have touched it. Jeremy did it. That's why it went he lied about me. God has a really good sense of humor as well. I told this story to my wife, Patty, this week as I was preparing. And Friday, we went to Costco, and I pulled in to this parking spot with my truck. And there was a shopping cart there, kind of just up on the curb, and so I pulled mostly in. I didn't want to hit the shopping cart. I was going to just jump out and move the shopping cart, so I, threw the shifter up, and I jump out, and the truck starts going this way. Apparently, you have to go all the way to P when you park. R is not good, is what I learned. So God thinks that's funny, But let's get back to the important part. My brother lied about me. That's the important part, what we're talking about. Today's message is they're lying about me. They're lying about me. We're going to talk about a pretty big lie that happened in Joseph's life and how we can deal with those kind of things, how we can deal with the ups and the downs when things are going against us. And even when we think, hey, God has this plan for me. God has this purpose for me. I'm doing all of the things. I'm following God. I'm being obedient, but there's still things happening. Sometimes people are lying about you. People are slandering. Real quick, in case you missed last week or you're not familiar with the life of Joseph, we come to Genesis chapter 37, and we find out about Joseph. He is the son of Jacob, who's the son of Isaac and Abraham. So if you've ever heard of those names in the Bible, God has a promise for Abraham. He passes it down to Isaac, passes it down to Jacob. And then Jacob has 12 sons. Joseph is his 11th son. So pretty far down on the ladder there, but he is the first son of Rachel, who is the wife that Jacob loved the most. So really, in Jacob's eyes, Joseph is kind of like his firstborn. It's the one he loves the most. And he gives him this ornate robe, this robe of many colors, and it sets him apart from his brothers. His brothers have to go out and manage the flocks and the herds and all that kind of stuff, but Joseph is kind of set up as manager. And so with his robe, that kind of signifies his authority and his place in the household. And so his brothers don't really like him a whole lot. If you have older brothers, you get it. They don't really like you as the younger brother. And imagine, and Joseph has these dreams. God gives him these dreams that his brothers will eventually bow down. And so he goes and tells his brothers about these dreams, which they're not excited about either. And so then Joseph goes to visit them. His dad tells him, go check on your brothers. And they see him coming, and they go, here comes that dreamer. And his brothers have this idea. They said, let's kill him. Let's kill him. I don't care if he's dad's favorite. Like, I don't want him lording this over us. And they say, let's kill him. But their oldest brother, Reuben, he says, no, let's not kill him. Let's just throw him into this cistern and we'll leave him for dead. That way the blood's not on our hands. And so that was the choice. That was the decision to do. But then while he's in the cistern, while he's down in this pit, these Ishmaelites come along, these slave traders, these human traffickers. And the brothers think, hey, let's just sell him into slavery. Then we know he's gone forever. And so they sell him off. They take his robe. They rip it all up. They dip it in blood. They take it back to their father and they say, we found this. Joseph must be dead. An animal must have mauled him. He's not dead, but his father believes it. And that's where we pick up today in chapter 39, is that Joseph has been sold into slavery. It says, now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. Potiphar, an Egyptian who was one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him there. So we get introduced to this guy named Potiphar. And Potiphar is a pretty influential guy. He's the captain of the guard. So meaning he's kind of like the head of the bodyguard of Pharaoh. Some scholars disagree about how you interpret that. Sometimes they think he's the captain of the guard who does like executions and kills prisoners. But it really doesn't matter. Either way, he's in a high position. He's wealthy. He's kind of got Pharaoh's ear. He's in the inner circle, if you will. So he's got lots of influence, lots of wealth. He owns servants and slaves, and so he buys Joseph and he brings him into his home as a slave. And Joseph has just arrived. He's just traveled 250 to 300 miles to get to Egypt. He was in Dothan with his brothers where he gets sold off, and then they travel down to Egypt. And this 250, 300 miles would take them about 15 to 20 days to travel, if that's all they were doing. If they were doing like 20 miles a day and they were just heading right down there. But they're Ishmaelites, they're buying and selling slaves, so they're probably taking their time. So Joseph probably, it takes anywhere from 30 to maybe 45, maybe 60 days for him to actually get down there. And I think that's one of those interesting things we have to be careful of in the Old Testament, is we go from one sentence to the next, and it feels like, hey, this just happened, but there's actually some time that happens in there. There's this time, and the Bible doesn't tell us how Joseph is processing all of this. We don't get the internal monologue. We don't get to hear it directly from Joseph, but he has to be processing this. He has to be wondering what's going on. I'm imagining there was a lot of prayer. There's a lot of prayer from Joseph saying, God, why? God, why is this happening? Why have you let this happen? What about the dreams, God? Weren't those from you? What about your favor? Weren't you supposed to be going before me? Didn't you call me into this, God? Why do my brothers hate me? Why am I now a slave? Why is all of this happening? And he's just confused, and he's heading down to Egypt. And I think we can have similar questions. We can have similar things happen in our life where we're following God. We're trying to do right. We're trying to be a good person. We're loving people. We're giving. We're serving. We're doing all of these things. And then tragedy happens to us. We have a detour in our life. And we wonder, God, what are you doing? Like, why did you take her from us, God? Or why can't I get a job? God, why do I have to have this illness? Why does my health have to be affected? God, why do they treat me like this? God, when will there be less stress in my life? God, why doesn't he love me, or why doesn't she love me? God, how long must I wait? Have you ever said that question? You've got a promise from God, or you see things and you have desires and goals and you're going for them, but you're just in this season of waiting. There's these ups and downs, these detours in our lives, and here's what we see in the Bible as we look at how Joseph responds to all of these things. There's this unstated truth that happens. Like, it doesn't directly tell us, but we see, based off of Joseph's actions and God's responses, that Joseph is seeking God through all of this. Yes, he's a slave. Yes, he has no autonomy. Yes, he's hurt. He's broken. But Joseph is crying out to God. Joseph's faith is in the one who sees all, knows all, and is sovereign. Joseph is seeking God in the midst of what's happening. In the midst of what's happening. And when you experience challenges and struggles like this in life, when you experience these detours, what I want to encourage you to do, what you need to do is we do like Joseph, we press into God. See, it's very easy when we experience heartache, when we experience hurt, when we experience brokenness, when we experience slander, to just go like, God, what are you doing? You said you were for me, but now all this bad stuff has happened. So, it's very easy to walk away from God. It's very easy to blame God. It's very easy to dismiss that God doesn't even care about you. It's very easy to run away. But when life takes a detour, you need to press in to God. James tells us that if you draw near to God, God will draw near to you. You don't just sit back and wait and kind of like, where's God? I don't know where but you seek him out. In those hard times, when you recognize, hey, I'm hurting. God, I don't want to, I'm waiting. I don't understand. Why is it taking so long? God, why is all this stuff happening? You seek out God and you ask him. He's not afraid of your questions. He's not surprised by them by any means. It's okay to be like authentic and raw with God and say, God, why are you allowing this to happen? Maybe some of the questions you need to ask God while you're in this detour of life is, God, what are you doing? God, what do you want to do in me through this? God, how can I bring you glory and honor even though I'm hurting? God, will you strengthen me? God, will you work in me? God, will you use this for your own good and for the better of those around me? See, here's what you need to hear. God is pleased with a heart that seeks him in the valley. God is pleased with a heart that seeks him in the valley. We all have our ups and our downs. We all have challenges. And what's important is that we continue to seek God, whether we're on the mountaintop or we're in the valley. Amen. When you seek God with all your heart in the valley, you will see him move. It may take a while. God's timing is perfect. It seems like his watch is broken, but his timing is perfect. So you seek God with all your heart in the valley. You seek him and you'll experience his blessing and you'll see the favor of God, even while you're still in that struggle. And that's what we see with Joseph. Joseph's life is full of all of these detours, all of these things that don't seem to make sense. When we look at the beginning of Joseph's story, there's this coat of many colors, there's lots of favor, there's these dreams that he's going to be in some kind of authority, some kind of powerful position, yet he's sold as a slave. And he has no control over what's happening in his life at that point, but yet God chooses to bless him. Let's continue on. Verse 2, the Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. From the time he put him in charge of his household and of all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. Because of Joseph's faithfulness to God, because of his obedience, because he's crying out to God in the valley. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. Verse 6, so Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. That sounds like a pretty good life to me. Like, you just got to worry about what's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's it. Sign me up. You know what's interesting? So like I talked about, like we have to remember there's time that's passing. And I didn't, before I started researching this week and kind of really digging into Joseph's life, I didn't recognize, but like Joseph was in Potiphar's house as a servant for 11 years. In verse 30 or in chapter 37, we find out he's 17 when he's sold into slavery. Later on, when he becomes Pharaoh promotes him to be the leader of Egypt, essentially, just right underneath him, the governor. He's 30 years old. And then we find out also that he spends 2 years in prison right after being in Potiphar's house. So if you do all the math, Joseph is in Potiphar's house for 11 years. 11 years as a servant. And he's in there and he's being obedient to God and God is blessing him and Potiphar recognizes, Potiphar doesn't have to think about anything. Once he puts Joseph in charge, all he thinks about is steak or fish for dinner. That's it. And he knows that everything's going well and he's receiving the blessings of God, even though Potiphar is not necessarily following God or believing in God or doing anything. It's just overflowing from Joseph to Potiphar. And Potiphar's living like this king. Everything is taken care of by Joseph. Joseph oversees the servants, and he would make sure that the entire state was running well, running smoothly from inside the house to out to the fields, because Potiphar would own fields as in his position. And what I find most interesting about how God is moving in Joseph's life is that there's this blessing even though he's still in the valley, even though he's still a servant. He's a slave. This is not a job. This is not something he got hired on to and he chooses to be at every day and he makes the choice. No, this is his life. He is required to do it. If he chooses not to, then it's prison or death for a servant. But God is working in his life and blessing him. I want you to hear this. God can bless in the middle of your mess. Isn't that cool? It rhymes. So you know it's true if it rhymes, No. God can bless in the middle of your mess. Just because you're going through something difficult, just because you're going through something that's painful, it doesn't mean that God is not with you. It doesn't mean that God has forsaken you. It doesn't mean that God doesn't care about you. It doesn't mean that God doesn't see you. It just means you're going through something hard. As I've walked through life, I've recognized there's one truth that I've really come to embrace, and that is my circumstances will change. I may be having a really good time, a good season in my life. And I go, well, that could change. I've seen it happen. I've gone from here to here, to here, to here, to here. Our circumstances change all the time. But what doesn't change, what is unchanging, who is unchanging, is God. He is always there with us. And he can bless in the middle of your mess. What we are called to do is to seek God with our hearts all the time, no matter whether it's good or it's bad, whether we're on top of the mountain or we're down in that valley. Our desire may be just to have God completely fix everything. I mean, that is everybody's, that's my desire. When I'm going through hard things, it's like, God, just fix it all. But sometimes God doesn't want to fix it all because he knows better. Because his ways are better than ours. His wisdom is better than ours. His plans are bigger than what we can imagine. It's possible that right now, while you're going through something difficult, God is doing some refining in your soul. It's possible that you're not ready for the next thing. It's possible that if you were to move on to that next thing too quickly, there might be disaster. There might be problems that arise from that. There may be things happening that you have no clue about. Like there's a reason why you haven't gotten that job yet, because there's a toxic environment over there and God's cleaning it up before he brings you into it. Isn't that awesome that God will think about those kind of things for you? I mean, I truly believe that God does those kind of things. He looks at what is going on. He sees the entire picture and he knows what's happening. It's possible that God will work through your pain. He will work with your pain. He'll maybe use you in the future. You need to go through this because he has plans for you to talk to somebody else who's going to go through it. Patty and I, we've gone through some really hard things, and of all of those hard things, I've met people who are going through those hard things, and I'm like, wow, okay, I can tell you how God moved in my life. I can't solve the problem for you. I can't fix it for you, but I can tell you that God's faithful. I can tell you to keep seeking God, that he will work. That's how God works in and through our valleys. It's possible that what you see as a roadblock, God sees as a building block. See, Joseph was over his brothers, had a little bit of authority. But what he didn't know is that those dreams that God had for him would end up, later in this series as we talk about, Joseph is promoted to the governor of Egypt. He's second only to Pharaoh. He's overseeing an entire country through famine and all kinds of stuff, and he's not ready for that. So God takes him on this trip to build him up. He goes into Potiphar's house, and now he's overseeing a whole household. Later, he'll oversee an entire prison. Like God is working in that valley to build him up. Maybe your roadblock is just a place for God to build you up. It's possible that God is having you wait in the season because he knows what's ahead for you. He knows your faith needs to grow. He knows your trust needs to grow in him because he's got big plans for you. Deuteronomy 31:6 says it like this: "So be strong and courageous, do not be afraid, and do not panic before them. For the Lord your God will personally go ahead of you. He will neither fail you nor abandon you." That's a promise you can take to the bank. God is for you. God will be with you. I love this, he will personally go before you. Our God is a personal God. He wants to know you at the most personal level, and he personally, like when he goes before you, he's thinking about you. He knows the plans that he has for you, and he wants to lift you up and build you up. God never fails. He will be with you especially in your valley. God is with you. Now, whether we have mountaintop experiences or valley experiences, there's always one thing that we can count on will be there, and that is what we get next to in Joseph's life. Verse 6, the end of it says, "Now Joseph was well built and handsome, and after a while his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, 'Come to bed with me.'" Took notice. The Hebrew word that's translated to took notice literally means lifted up her eyes. She gave Joseph the, how you doing look. You know what I'm saying? That's a theological explanation of this verse, so I want you to know that. I went to school for that. And but no, that's what's happening. So, I mean, we get it. She says, "Hey, you're good looking. I want you. Why don't you come to bed with me?" And here's the thing that we see is that temptation is around every corner. It doesn't matter what's going on in your life. It doesn't matter if you're in a place of authority. It doesn't matter if you're going through a valley or up on the mountaintop. Temptation is going to happen. There's always something. Envy or lust or pride or jealousy or greed. This side of eternity, temptation's not going to go away. It's always going to be there. It's always something we have to deal with. Now, I want to remind you, temptation is not sin. When we talk about temptation, these are the things that pull on our desires and may make us want to sin or go towards that route. But the temptation itself is not a sin. The temptation is going to be around, but we don't have to, follow it. We don't have to go towards it. I love how Martin Luther explained it. He kind of used birds as an example. He says, "You cannot keep birds from flying over your head, but you can keep them from building a nest in your hair," which is very offensive to me. I just want you to know that. Do you know how many bald jokes there have been in the last couple weeks? Pastor Nick called out Zach as the drummer, the bald drummer. He could have just said drummer. We all knew who he was talking about. He didn't have to say bald. That's not cool. But temptation's always flying, always up there. And we can't control that. We can't stop the birds from flying in the air. That's what they do. They go over us. But what we can do is we can make sure they don't land. What we can do is make sure that they don't lodge and make a nest in our hair and do these kind of things. Look how Joseph handles this temptation. It's so beautiful. Verse 8, "But he refused. 'With me in charge,' he told her, 'my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?' And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her." Now, first, I want to note that sexual sin in this case, that's not the only temptation that Joseph and Potiphar's wife have. There's more going on here. There's a play for power. Joseph, yes, there's this sexual sin that's tempting. But there's also this temptation of well, you know what? The only thing that Potiphar has said I can't have is his wife, and well, what if I just have her? Then I'm the most powerful in this house. Then I have everything. Now, maybe in private, but at least I can use that to my own advantage, right? Or Potiphar's wife, same kind of thing. She recognizes who Joseph is in the household. He's second in command. If she can be with him, then there's a level of control. There's a level of relationship that happens there. There's more temptation going on here than just sex and that kind of thing. for Potiphar's wife, she's doing that. He's a Hebrew slave, and she could just take advantage of that, regardless of the reason that Potiphar's wife chose to go after Joseph. Maybe it was just pure lust. Maybe it was just pure, she wanted to have sex with him. Joseph gives her 3 strong reasons why he won't do this. 1, my master trusts me. He's entrusted everything to me. 2, my master has only held one thing from me, his wife. And 3, which I believe to be the most important, it's a sin against God. He says, how could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? Honestly, this is a pretty risk-free offer for Joseph. He could make this happen really easy. He is the head of the household. It would not be difficult for him to clear the house and make sure no one witnesses it, and he can get away with it. And even if they do or they say something, well, he's the one in charge. He could get rid of other slaves, other servants. He could have them sold off or sent somewhere else, or maybe even to prison or death. Like, he could really do this. But Joseph knew that it was a sin against God. That's what he was concerned from. It makes me think of David in Psalm 51. He says in verse 4, against you, you only have I sinned and done what is evil in your sight, so that you are justified when you speak and blameless when you judge. So we have to recognize that sin, a deliberate act against a known law of God, when we go against what God's will is, we sin. And when we sin, yes, it affects people around us. It can destroy relationships. It can hurt other people. It can tear things down. It can tear people down. It can do all of those things. But really, what makes sin sin is that it's against God. See, we have to understand who God is to really understand why sin is important. God is holy. He's perfect. His love is perfect. His wisdom is perfect. His mercy is perfect. His justice is perfect. His actions are perfect. His kindness is perfect. His ways are perfect. And as such, his laws are perfect. And he tells us what is good and what is not good. See, we understand through the word of God, through what Jesus has taught us, that like envy is a sin. Lust is a sin. Gossiping is a sin. Lying is a sin. Lust is a sin. Stealing, it's a sin. And they're not just sins because they seem bad. They're sins because they're against God. They're a direct, almost, not to be too, it's almost a finger to God, if you know what I'm saying. It's like spitting in his face. Like, I don't care what you say. I'm going to do whatever I want. When we sin against a holy God. But when you get to a place where you recognize that what's most detrimental about that sin is that you are sinning against a holy God, a perfect God, a God that loves you, a God that cares about you, that a God who is patient with you, that even though you do sin, he doesn't smite you. Even though you do deserve death, he waits and made a way so that you don't have to experience death and separation from him. When you realize like who that God is, then you have what's called the fear of God. And the fear of God is amazing. It's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about like we're afraid of God. Like, oh no, God's going to get me. Like, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a reverent fear for God. When you have the full awareness of who God is, that he's the creator and that you're the created. When you recognize that God breathed stars into existence. When you recognize that God, even though he could smite you, doesn't, because he's patient and he's full of mercy and he's full of kindness and he's full of love. When you recognize that God is willing to go all the way to the cross, to die for you, to die for me, to make a way so that you aren't separated from him, then you have a reverent fear for God. You recognize that God is the God, our Father, who is willing to take you in his lap and hold you in his arms, but yet, you know what? He's also the King of the world, the King of the universe. He sits high in his majesty. He is someone who deserves reverence. And when we have that fear of God, we have this heart like Joseph. Like, how could I sin against God? Like, I know this is like a bad thing in our culture. I know that society says no. I know this is a law. But like, apart from that, if all that was gone, how could I sin against God? Here's what I want you to hear. The fear of God is a powerful weapon against temptation. The fear of God is a powerful weapon against temptation. It's not a thing where you live in fear and you're afraid, but that you are free because you know who God is, and you go, well, I don't want to do anything that hurts him. I don't want to do anything to offend him. For those of you who are married, you probably get this. Like it's not just because you signed a paper that says you're married that you don't cheat on your spouse. It's because, how could I do that? How could I lie to them? How could I do those kind of things? Like, I love them so much. And so when our heart is pointed to God, when we say, God, I love you so much because I know what you've done for me, well, how could I sin against God? We have that fear of God, and it's a powerful weapon. Joseph remembers who God is, even though his life seems hopeless. Yeah, he's in charge of everything, but he's still a slave. Joseph recognizes that God is not just the God of his father Jacob, but that he's his own God. He's introduced himself. He's learned that God is a personal God and that he is with him. And so if you want to resist temptation, if you want to do like Martin Luther says and not let it make a nest and not let it land, then you have to fix your eyes on Jesus. You have to recognize what God has done in your life. You have to, like that song we sang, gratitude. You have to have gratitude in your heart. Like, God has done so much for me. I can tell you, like, God has done literally so much for me. God has saved my life multiple times. Some from situations that were outside of my control. Some from situations that were in my control, and I did really dumb things. But God is so good. God has called me and he's purposed me, and it hasn't been easy. It hasn't been perfect. But how could I sin against God? How could I do those things? Let's see what else Joseph does. Verse 11, one day he went into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the household servants was inside. They were all alone. She caught him by his cloak and said, "Come to bed with me." But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. All alone. No one else was around. No one else would know. Here's her opportunity. She grabs hold of him. Let's do this. And he runs. There's dangers of being alone with our temptations. Up late at night, looking on the phone. No one will know. I could delete my history. It's okay. Like, there's dangers in being alone. I'm on a trip. It's a business trip. I'm in the hotel. What's on TV? I'm by myself. Or it's just me and her. Me and him. No one else will know. Like, there's dangers with being alone. That's what Joseph recognizes here. He kind of looks around. He's like, wait a minute, what's going on? She grabs him and he runs. He's gone. He's gone. The Hebrew word that is translated to run, it means to take flight. He's gone. I want you to hear, sometimes you just got to run. Sometimes you have to run. You need to run. See, I found that there are these temptations in life that aren't worth kind of hanging around. You know, sometimes we have temptations that aren't real super strong. Temptations that we can easily go like, no. You know, maybe I'm looking on the phone. I'll swipe away from that. I don't need that. Okay. No, okay, I know that thought just came in, but I'm just going to dismiss it. I don't need to dwell on him or her. I don't need to, I feel the pride bubbling up. No, God, I want to seek you. But there are some temptations that we have to run from, that feel like they grab hold of us, that want to take our cloak, that want to just pull us in. And so we have to be like Joseph and just run. You know, I love movies and TV. I've talked about this before. I love it. I grew up watching all kinds of movies. I mean, that was like my summer. I sat and watched TV because I lived in South Dakota. There was no friends around because we lived in Timbuktu and all that kind of stuff. But I watched I watched a lot of TV. My first real job was at a movie theater, and so I got to watch movies for free, and I worked up in management, and I would help make the movies, and when you put all the movies together, you have to watch it, and I've enjoyed that, and I love the craft and the art of filmmaking and all that kind of stuff, I never really thought it was a big deal. I watch rated R movies, I watch TVMA shows, and it's not a really big deal, but God has checked my heart multiple times. And when I turn to the Lord, I recognize, like, okay, there's some things that aren't good for me, but like, this is really good. Like, this is really good writing, and it's a great plot, so I'll just kind of look away. I won't pay attention during those scenes that I don't need to look, or the language won't bother me that much. But as I walked with Jesus, as I continued to do those things, I recognized, like, no, they do affect me. And then it was like, okay, well, I'll skip them. I won't just look away. I'll skip them. I'll actually skip them. And then I had to work through this whole thing of, like, when do I skip? Because I don't want to miss something that's really important to the plot. Like, that would be horrible. But, like, this isn't good for me to watch, so I don't know. Okay, I'll wait. Oh, now I need to skip. Okay, that was too much. And I'm working through this whole thing, and like God's checking me and saying, like, no. And so I've now gotten to this point where, like, I'm okay. As much as I may miss some really great art, some really great writing, some really great cinematography, some really great CGI and all this kind of stuff, like, it's okay. Like, I'm okay with it. Like, if God says no, then I'm okay. I'll just run. I'm not perfect. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. That's the truth. I don't always make the right choice, but I recognize there are times when I just need to run. I remember a show just recently. I started watching it, and it's got a bunch of language in it, and Patty, she's like, what are you watching? And I said, you know what, I don't know, and I turned it off. Like, I was like, why am I doing this? This is not worth it. I want to run away from those things. Sometimes we need to run. Sometimes we need to do something like put something on our phone that will block those things. Like, I'm going to make sure that it's not around me. Sometimes we need to run so much. Like, I don't go, like, I've had problems with drinking. I don't go to bars. I don't even like going to places that have alcohol, honestly. Is it because I can't control myself? It's just, no, it's because I don't even want to be as close. I don't even want to be that close. Like, I know the Lord has freed me from that, but I don't even want to be near it. I want to run away. There are times when we need to run away from that temptation. I'd much rather run away and miss out and be close to God. If we're not, we can end up like the guy from Proverbs 7. It says in verse 21, with persuasive words, she led him astray. She seduced him with her smooth talk. All at once he followed her like an ox going to the slaughter, like a deer stepping into a noose till an arrow pierces his liver, like a bird darting into a snare, little knowing it will cost him his life. See, it may seem innocent. It's just a little look. It's just a little lie. It's just a little gossip. Just a little thought, little stealing, little pride. But each one of them adds up. Like, I think that's the most dangerous part about the temptations that come to us and the sins that we may commit out of those temptations, is because the truth of the matter is like, if you tell that one little lie, is it going to destroy your life forever? Probably not. If late at night while you're looking on your phone and that image, that video comes up and you linger a little longer and you kind of think about it in your head and you lust a little bit, is it going to like destroy your marriage right away? Probably not. But every little thing is just a step. That's how the enemy wants to work. I'll just get you this much further from God. And then just this much further from God. And then this much further. And lo and behold, that little thing after little thing after little thing after little thing, and you look back and you're miles from where you wanted to be. Miles from where you wanted to be. Every little thing adds up. And so we have to be diligent about it. There's no reason that we should be like, how close to the line of sin can I get and still be okay with God? Like, that's not the life that God's called us to. We're to run away from that and say, I want to be as far away from that line as I possibly can be, because that's the good life. Even when I'm a servant, I've been sold into slavery and my brothers hate me and my life is going to the trash can and I can't, like when everything's horrible and the car's broken down, and the job is gone, and the kids are a mess, and my marriage, I don't know how that's going to hang on, and all of those things are going to happen, I still want to be as far away from that, because when I'm as far away from that, I know God can move. I know God will move. I know God is pleased with a heart of obedience, even in the midst of our valley. Here it comes. They're lying about me. Here it is. When she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand and had run out of the house, she called her household servants. Look, she said to them, this Hebrew has been brought to us to make sport of us. He came in here to sleep with me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house. She kept his cloak beside her until his master came home. And then she told him this story, that Hebrew slave you brought us came to me to make sport of me. But as soon as I screamed for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house. Potiphar's wife brings in all the servants. She does what most slanderers and liars do. She tries to control the narrative. Now remember, when Joseph left, what was in her hand? The cloak. If she'd have kept that in her hand and said, hey, he came in and did all this stuff, don't you think most people would be like, well, the cloak's in your hand. Like, what's going on? So she makes sure she sets it down beforehand. So it looks like he came in, he took it off, dropped it, and he went, because she's controlling the narrative. She's bringing everybody else. And then she kind of like includes them. She says this Hebrew slave, she ties into something that they may hate. Like, it's not even an Egyptian slave, it's a Hebrew slave. Can you believe it? And he's here to make fun of all of us. You're included. She helps them become the victim as well. And they're kind of like, yeah, I never knew. I don't know. I always wondered about that Joseph guy, and you're probably right. That seems like something he would do. That's how slanderers work. They want to do that. And here's the thing. Joseph is trying to follow God. He's doing everything right. He refused her advances at the beginning. Day after day, she kept going after him and after him and after him. She finally catches him when he's all alone. He runs out of his cloak. He's doing everything right. But he's guilty in the eyes of Potiphar. And here's what I want you to hear. This is the enemy's tactic. Every step you take in your faith, the enemy is there to try to derail you. He wants to do everything he can to stop you from going forward. Everything. Anytime you try to do the will of God, the devil will be right there trying to trip you up. I tell all of our people who get baptized. Easter, we had 65 people get baptized. Praise the Lord. Amazing work of God. And I send them an email like right after that week, and I say, hey, be ready. Because you just took a step of faith. You just kind of declared war. You said, here's who I am. I'm a new creation in Jesus Christ. I'm going to be as close to God as I possibly can. Be ready, because the enemy is coming. I tell him what happened in Mark after Jesus was baptized. He goes into the wilderness and he's tempted by the devil. Like, it's going to happen. And it's kind of funny because the devil has no new tricks. Like, I know it's going to happen to you, so just be ready. So I tell them, and sure enough, I hear from them throughout the week of like, thank you for sending that email. This started happening. Like, I started having arguments with my wife, and I was like, where's all this coming from? But it was thankful he had spiritual lenses to look through and say, hey, the enemy is trying to work. He's trying to destroy. He's trying to get you back to your old ways. Every time you want to turn to Jesus, the devil will be there trying to stop you. Praise Jesus. He has no power in the name of Jesus. You know what I'm saying? We claim Jesus. Check out how this part of Joseph's life, this story ends. It says, when his master heard the story, his wife told him, saying, this is how the slave treated me. He burned with anger. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. But while Joseph was there in the prison, the Lord was what? Was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in the prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. Interestingly, Potiphar puts him in prison. I don't know about you, but if someone attempted to rape my wife, I don't think I would be as calm to put them in prison, if you know what I'm saying. Potiphar's a very influential man. He's the captain of the guard, right? I mean, he could have quite literally just killed Joseph, no problem. He was a servant. He was a slave. Like, you see what I'm saying? But Potiphar didn't do that. There's a good chance that Potiphar didn't believe his wife, but he was stuck. Like, he couldn't disgrace his wife and say, no, I know who Joseph is. He would never do that. So he puts him in prison. And then this crazy thing happens. God is with him again in the valley, like the deeper valley. Like, sometimes we're like in the mess and then we realize like it can get worse, and it does. Now he's in prison. And this crazy, it's a miracle. Like, imagine going to prison and the warden comes to your cell and he's like, I noticed you have some good organizational skills. Could you run this for me? Could you just take care of all these prisoners for me? Like, that's what happens. Like, God goes before Joseph in an amazing way. Like, I think it's easy to just read over that and be like, oh, okay, God's with him. But like, that doesn't happen. The warden doesn't just put the prisoner in charge and go like, well, I'm going to kick my feet up. But God moves. God is with him. This chapter ends just like it started. God's favor goes before Joseph. And it doesn't go before him just because. It goes because Joseph is following God. He recognizes that sin would be against God. I'm not going to do it. Even though I'm in the valley, I'm going to seek God with everything I have. I'm looking for him. I'm trying to find him. I love how the New Beacon Bible Commentary states it. It says, the circumstances in Joseph's life do not seem to indicate God's faithfulness. We see Joseph sold into slavery. He goes into prison. It doesn't indicate God's faithfulness. But the narrator reminds the readers otherwise. God does not protect Joseph from trouble, but he is with him in the midst of trouble. God is with you, even in your pain. Even in your trouble, even in the midst of the brokenness, God will never forsake you. God is there in the prison with you. God is there in the hurt with you. God is there in the brokenness with you. God will work in the strained relationship. God will work in the loss. God will provide when the job is gone. God will will pull you up out of the darkness. God is with you. God sees you. God knows what you're going through. God can see it. God recognizes it. He knows what it feels like to be lost. He knows Jesus walked this earth. He knows exactly what it's like to be tempted in every single way, but he was without sin. And he knows what it's like to go through the hardships of life. He's had a friend die. He's had people get hurt. He knows what it's like. We have a God who can relate to us, and he is with you. That's what I want you to hear. As we turn from our temptation, as we do everything we can to run away from that and make sure that we're following Jesus with everything, when we walk in obedience with Jesus, God is with us, and he will bless, even in the mess, even in the valley, even in the trouble. God is with you. Jesus, thank you for your love and your grace. Thank you for this message, God. Thank you for this morning. Oh, God, thank you for all that you do. You see us in our pain. You see us in our hurting. You know the person that slandered. You know the person that gossiped. You know how that felt. You know everything, God, and you're all powerful. And so we just put our faith in you. We want to live like Joseph lived. We want to run from temptation. We want to run towards you. And God, we want to see your favor go before us, God. We need you so desperately. Maybe you're here today and you've never made that decision to follow Jesus, to fix your eyes on Jesus, to give your life to Jesus, and you recognize that, yeah, I've been living in this sin, and I've been just following after temptation and sinning, and I'm living this life that's not right, and there's a God who loves me and a God who cares for me, and I want that God in my life. You can just say this prayer. Just say, Jesus, forgive me of all of my sins. I don't want to live for myself. I want to live for you. I give you my life. I give you everything. I surrender to your will in my life. Fill me with your Holy Spirit. Transform me every single day to be more like you, Jesus. Maybe you're here and you recognize there's some temptation you need to run away from. Or maybe you're just going through the valley and you need more of God. You recognize maybe my obedience hasn't been quite what it should be. Just say this prayer. Say, God, forgive me for getting too close to that line. Forgive me for all of my sins. I trust in you. I seek you wholeheartedly right here in the valley. God, if you want to use this as a time to build me up, to refine me, to transform me, then do so. I surrender completely to you. We pray this all in Jesus' matchless name. Amen.